Okay, with changing modes of video film consumption, how are cinematographers adapting their techniques of crafting images for different screens? In this session, we try and understand just that. For the discussion on the changing landscape of Indian cinematography, I would like to invite Ms. Fowzia Fathima, Professor and Head of the Department, Cinematography at K.R. Narayanan National Institute of Visual Science and Arts, Kerala, and other eminent cinematographers, Mr. Shanker Raman and Mr. Tapan Basu. The session will be moderated by actor and producer, Mr. Sanjay Suri. May I please welcome all the esteemed guests on the stage. Over to you, Sanjay.
Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for being here after a very interesting previous session on the OTT world. And thank you for coming back, and thank you for staying. With us, we have eminent personalities who see the film first with the eye. The director, writers have seen it in their mind and the imagination. They actually see it with their eye. But in the changing landscape, as the subject suggests, everyone sees us on the monitor and the assist as well. So I'm going to straight away dive into a conversation with the experts. Firstly, congratulations. That was from Frozen and Harad, right? Yeah, commonly known as Harud, but I'm from Kashmir. I think it's pronounced as Harad. So Harad. And Kahani and many ad films. Any other film? Okay, wonderful. And Fowzia, welcome. Yeah, please. So, changing landscape of Indian cinematography. Always struggle with this pronunciation. So it made it easy to like, okay, DOP, he's the DOP or she's the DOP. What do you have to say with the changing landscape of cinematography in India and world over? We'll keep it specific to, I think there's a huge Indian delegate over here. So with our perspective, I know it doesn't have boundaries, but we still work within certain boundaries. How do you think it's changing? Shanker, sorry, I'll just start with you.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, so I think, so if I can just start by, at what personally cinematography is for me, kind of shifted over time. When I was in film school, I had a certain notion about what cinematography is, and that's how I learned it, which is essentially engaging more with the science of it. So whether it's technical skill or it's understanding the sensitometry or the emulsion or whatever you want to call that. And I think I kind of largely struggled with what it is for. What am I going to do with this? I can make an image, but what is it for? Why is it relevant? And I think over the course of working with a lot of directors, a lot of good directors, what I learned was that, say, the physics of movement and the chemistry of light sort of gives form to the emotional landscape, which is otherwise not easy to hold for a viewer. So we are telling stories, and cinematography is the science of telling stories, and it's really, working in tandem with the vision of a director and delivering that. So that I think I come from a culture where I learned on film, which was a very different medium than the digital medium. Film was you saw the image only after it got processed, which was a good period of time after we shot it. There was a lot of trust. There was a lot of understanding, perhaps, in my view, a deeper collaboration that helped in creating that image. today we have, largely we shoot on digital, and with digital, everything is out there. Everyone looks at the monitor and pretty much sees an image which is close to what the final, what it may finally look like. So fundamentally, I think the way we work has changed. The way we look at it, and the way we talk about images has changed. It has changed in a way, I would say, for the better, because a lot more people can engage with it. It's, today you have internet, you have other forms of technology, and it's easier to talk about image making. It's easier to refer to, say, you know, existing work and get a sense of what we are looking at. I mean, it's not easy to articulate something that you hold emotionally. You can't, it's hard to put it into words, but when you look at an image, it's much easier. So in that sense, I feel it's become a lot more easier. The challenge is that it's available and everybody has an image in their hand, and so when we start creating a new piece of work, it almost feels like you're up against some sort of a reference. Like you feel like you're emulating other work because you have all these images floating around. So that's largely, I would say, the changes for me.
Very interesting context you gave. You brought the analog and then came to the present times. Tapan, if I would ask you if changing landscape is also, it's ever changing, right? Where do you see, where are we heading? Like specifically, for example, we all producers get scared with these delivery formats. You know, delivery of a day and age which we have not seen, but you're preparing for a time which, again, we have not seen. So how does one, that's also part of the changing landscape. I mean, going forward, what do you anticipate? How do you prepare now? Or what would you suggest your director, producer, how to prepare the minimum standard?
See, ideally, see, like, you know, I would
Keep
say
it
that,
close to your
yeah,
mouth.
ideally, I would say that, you know, like, first of all, cinematography is not rocket science, okay? Like, we are not scientists. At the end of the day, I think we all are trying to tell a story. And ideally, the format is all changing, no doubt about it. You know, like, you know, like Shanker said, you know, we are all like trying to tell a story which can be close to our heart, whether it's from, you know, director's perspective, you know, the script. Now, we have to see different, like, you know, now see like analog. So from film, it became to digital. Now all of a sudden, and then when Netflix came in, they started saying like 4K. Now it's just, and then, you know, we do have the cameras now, which now adapting to 4K. So now, you know, like next year, I think you'll have this platform called QB, which is going to be only available on phone. Now, you know, so every time, you know, every platform is coming up with their own criteria. So there's nothing to, I think, worry about. It's just that as a filmmaker or a producer or, you know, when you are making something, I think you obviously have a plan that, you know, I want to release in theater or I want to go to a platform. And every platform has their own criteria. So then, you know, and every platform will have their own paper, kind of a white paper, which will say that, you know, we will have this much, you know, this way we have to shoot or this technology. And I think technology is good because you just have to adopt it and, you know, you can probably use it much more to tell a story. So it can become your tool rather than, you know, you should not fear technology. At the end of the day, you know, we are going to tell a story. Whether it's to forget about anything else, because that's your technical crew which will take care of it. It's nothing to worry about. So I think that's the kind of way we should approach it.
So keep changing with the changing landscape. Keep adapting.
Yeah, we have to keep adapting. Yeah, it's true.
Wonderful.
Like, you know, formats like when the platform opened up and say that we want 4K, like say Alexa did not have, like Arri camera was not 4K. So they came up with this LF, the like large format. So it's like everybody, you know, it's like platform is doing, then the camera body is changing, then I have to keep, like as a cinematographer, you have to keep, like we have to keep updating ourselves. Every 6 months something else is coming out. So that's not, I would say, something to worry about. But like, you know, the other day we were talking about, like, you know, we have so many cameras, now what do we choose from? So that's exactly the thing, that what story you're doing and what's the best possible technology to use that. That's the way we should go about it.
Fowzia, as a professor and also
Yeah,
just your thoughts.
We're all alumni of the same institution, I should say, from FTI Pune, and definitely as anticipators of change, we definitely belong to the same kind of a mindset. And what I would like to say is that, say from the 2003-4 onwards, when the digital was just on the peeping in front, we knew it was going to come, and mini TV and, trials happening. I kind of started hands-on experimenting from, say, 2005 onwards, HTV and the first, and all the time the anticipation that something more is coming, something more is coming. And I should say that now that we are right bang middle of it, and we are 4K, 8K, whatever, I know very well that we are way ahead actually in terms of the research and the knowledge that is already there. It's there. It's like there are televisions which are capable of doing 10 times more or 20 times more than what we are seeing are available now. So the technology is being released according to the market logic, and I think we are way ahead already, like quite ahead. So as this phases out, maybe the next step, and it will be milking of technology. That's what is going to be happening. And for one, the main thing that has happened is liberating this very act of taking images and making your own films, and democratization, complete democratization of image making process, which is in a way very exciting. It has opened up so much personal filmmaking, and randomly people make films, and also it evolves into a kind of much more serious stuff also. That is a very liberating kind of thing that has happened. And even though the platforms and all are very stringent on what is the criteria, what is the kind of quality they want, but if something is shot on a phone and it's relatively primitive looking stuff also, if there is a lot of heart and energy in it, they still stand with it. So there is this fine line between the fine art of telling stories with fine images, and then there is all heart and soul and energy. And so that is the one reality of today's change. Future-wise, I feel that with computational imaging coming up in such a big way that you can make the image first and then shoot it virtually, you're opened up the whole arena of virtual image making.
What are you telling your students? How to take a grasp of, not to get kind of taken in by this entire marketing and focus on just technology and cameras, and just keep the core intact, storytelling, and versus technology. For example, a lot of people have great ideas, and when technology can help you, and when we have all from film time, and it used to be almost seem impossible making a film because stock was expensive. And then whatever was left out, one could go to a lab and try out a deal, and even in film schools, certain cans are left out and unexposed, and you use those. But there's a certain discipline that came with that, right? So, I mean, how are you approaching that? Because you come from a very disciplined time where you didn't have the luxury of just rolling. I've, as an actor, shot where the directors are going, okay, they say always from the top. So you're just shooting the scenes 10 times, exhausting your lighting department, your actors, your everyone on the set, because the editor's not in the mind. But that's a separate subject.
See, what we have basically trying to do is impose the same kind of discipline while you're making, with similar kind of self-imposed restrictions, that you keep a ratio of 1:3. You do your rehearsals, and then you go about, that's the best way, that you keep to a rigor. And you do your preparation beforehand, and you present your docket and whatever your study material, and you collaborate. Because the whole process of listening to another person's, and then visualizing it and coming onto a common ground, that becomes a space of nurture. How you collaborate and how do you understand? So that gets a lot of emphasis, and therefore you veer towards the artistry of it. how do you make, it's an artistic process. How do you get to that? And how do you articulate the nuances of image making, the elements of the image making? And so the emphasis goes into that as much as getting your technology base right. And then you're not in this fear of, what's something that you don't know, you get that right. And then there is a thing of, there's a certain limit to how many things you can actually access in a film school. Say, a certain workflow you can standardize, then there is always we do not know that camera, we do not know this camera. That is a kind of anxiety that is there, and we try to do that with certain workshops and demonstrations from different manufacturers and things like that. Therefore, it's a balance between three things. One is man management, second is the artistry and aesthetics, and third is the technology, in fact. So it's rather, very balanced way we try to go about it.
Shanker, I had a personal question as a producer. When a new camera is introduced and it's a talk of the town, we all want to use it. You want the best image quality, new technology, you want to be updated. And within 3 months, a competitive camera comes in, and then that becomes the... So, as DPs, how much how negotiable are DPs on this? Because sometimes you feel, 3 months back that camera was good, but now you only want to work on this camera because the latest you want to try your hand. Obviously we all want the film, but the budget does not allow. How adaptable, or is just an individual take, or you can still make great stuff on, the older cameras? So the dependency on technology, what's your take on that? Just
I personally think beyond a point, I don't care about resolution. If, like I've shot a movie, an entire movie on the Panasonic DVX200, which was not even 1080p, it was 720. It's called Patang. It's on Netflix. It premiered in Berlinale. We made a Cinematographer print those days, which is essentially a print that you make directly from an MOV file. Essentially, you export the film as a TIFF sequence, and you make a straight print. So we actually made that print, and that facility was available in Film Lab during those days. It's not as great as making a print from a negative, but pretty compelling. So this was in 2011. It premiered in Berlinale, and it was great because we ran some tests. We even had a small budget to shoot it on 16, but we did some tests and we found that there is so much more flexibility shooting on the street with kids. It wasn't a traditional block and shoot kind of a thing. The director wanted to just throw us in. I mean, on days he would say, you know what, I'm not going to tell you what location I'm going to shoot in. I mean, that's crazy, but that's what he would say. So no one knew what location we're going to shoot in, and it was all in this small town, in this old town of Ahmedabad. And in the morning, we would all just walk and land up in a place, and we start shooting. So there's no blocking, there's nothing. So that camera, which is like a handy cam, was very useful to run with it and to find those moments. I mean, there were long kite flying sequences on the rooftop where we would shoot for 40 minutes with music blaring, and then at some point he will feel his actors are ready, and he would just turn the music off and we'll shoot sing-song. So but for 40 minutes I'm rolling. Like I'm actually like shooting. So I can't fake it.
Yes. So ideally the choice of whatever you do should emerge from the story. And resources.
That's right. It's a combination of both. Yeah. But having said that, I don't find myself today restricted by a smaller camera or a bigger camera. I just feel that every sensor ultimately has its advantages, disadvantages. And I feel that if you're present and mindful to what it's offering you, then you won't try and make it do what it can't.
You shot your own film on, I think, Canon 1DC or some parts of it on Gurgaon?
No, that was shot on the Red.
Red, okay.
But some bits were on the 1DC,
okay.
just more like B-roll stuff.
Okay.
kind of matched. But yeah, I mean,
And Frozen was shot on?
Frozen was shot on 35 millimeter.
35,
Yeah.
black and white.
No, we shot it on color, and then through the DI process,
All right.
we went
All right. Okay.
color reduction. But yeah, but it's, I think I started shooting a film on the iPhone, and I mean, we had to stop, but not because of any other reason. It's just that there were some other difficulties. But it was very interesting. I did some tests on the iPhone. I put it on a gimbal, and we just floated around, and I saw the results on screen, and it was great. It has its limitations, but you embrace them.
Yes.
So I'm not a stickler for it anymore. Of course, if you want me to shoot a commercial for L'Oreal, I'll say, let's get the LF.
Let's see.
But I won't say iPhone.
Yeah.
But yeah, then that is what the need is.
Yeah. Fowzia, we were speaking outside. You're doing something very interesting, and you wanted to present it here.
Yeah.
It's a
I would like to take this opportunity to extend the idea of changing landscape to the reality of the very many women DPs who are, at work today, and whose presence is not yet broken into the consciousness of the larger section of people working in films. So I would like to give a brief introduction. I'm talking about Indian Women Cinematographers Collective, which I'm one of the founders. Began in 2015 March, and over 2 years we networked, and by 2017 March we brought out a website. I'd like to share the website and introduce the very many women who are not here with me, which ideally would be nice to interact with everyone. Shall I?
Could we have the, with your permission,
Yeah.
could we have the slide, and we'll come back to, and then
I'm
we
here
throw it
on
open
this.
for some questions. Yeah. Yeah. We just. Yeah.
Okay, introducing our website homepage, Indian Women Cinematographers Collective. It, at the moment, hosts 31 women DOPs based across the country. And the logic of it, we did a lot of thinking and decided that it'll be this kind of a mosaic where each time you open the page, it'll be a different set of combinations, so that there's no one person who gets a predominance or prominence. So these is, and then you could go into the details, and it gives a possibility of presenting their showreel. These are all the names of the different members. Neha has done this 4 Shots Please and lots of other films for Yash Raj films. The idea being that we get used to the idea of a women DP's website, where one can access and see the works, interact probably, and there's another page which introduces you get an idea about the background. Let's just see them. I mean, these are all women DOPs working in making films, ads, documentaries.
So, do you have to be
Yeah.
a member to access them? Can you be a male?
Their contacts are there and there.
No, so just as a producer, can you kind of?
Yeah, you can access them through this.
Without being a member?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't get you. For an outsider, yeah, they can contact.
You can.
Yeah,
You don't
get
have
in
to
touch.
log in to see their
Yeah.
profile.
Yeah.
No. Okay.
You don't need to. Okay, so to us, let me just talk about. It's basically a peer group. We have an active WhatsApp group where we exchange informations, clarify doubts, and share notes and be alive and present and currently available to anybody at, in the group at all times. It's a 24/7 fully available to each other kind of a sisterhood, I should say, of women DPs. I'm not reading this. I really would welcome you to spend a few moments and
Sure. So the site is
iwcc.in.
Yes, yes. So,
Okay.
yep. Thank you, Fowzia.
Thank you. As of today, we have about 78 members across the country.
So let me open it up to the audience here. Direct questions.
Yeah, good evening to the panel.
Just
sir,
keep it closer to your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear? Yeah, good evening to the panel. Just I wanted to know, in analog time period, there was very limited options for a film. I'm talking about film making. So usually before the starting of film, the criteria was whether 16 mm or 35 mm or Kodak or Fuji, or normally it was only Airy camera. So today I am talking what is the scenario to choose what is replaced in this criteria in normal filmmaking procedure, which intend to be theatrical release. And what happened to the grammar kind, like over the shoulder shot, whether still it exists in today's digital scenario, like that, some basic. And another I wanted to ask, who are graduate or started their career in 70s or 80s, the cinematographers, even though they have passed out from FTA, other things, most of them, they say when they were as an assistant, they were not even allowed to go near the camera for certain number of years or certain number of films. So what was the main reason for that? Thank you.
Those are three questions. So is it addressed to all three or one person? That'll be too much for
to
one.
the panel of all three.
Yeah, it's like they can pick.
Yeah.
It's a
Because
lucky
it's
draw.
combination, multi-combinations, they are of different
Okay,
eras.
I've forgotten your first question.
I'll take the last one, okay? I'll take the last
Take
one.
the last one.
Earlier time, it was a small group who got access to the technology, money intensive, process intensive. So you had to go through the rigor, the gurukul of getting to actually putting your eye behind the viewfinder. You had to go through the process. Today also it is that, but then the image making and instantaneous thing of, you see what is there. Earlier you couldn't see. So the person with the eye to the viewfinder was the magician. Only he, she, okay, more of the he's actually, they knew what was going to finally materialize. Today everybody can see what the eye is seeing through the viewfinder.
Actually, I paid a price on that. As a new actor, I didn't know. So I went and saw through the viewfinder. I had to treat the entire set for beer. Because that was a norm. You have to treat, because you saw what the film is going to look like almost. But that discipline is gone. And now, yeah, there's like, unless you ticket, you could make money if you ticket the people around the monitor. Every day you could make money. It's like 500 rupees, you stand here, and 20 people. Every day, in 30 days, you would have recouped. So, okay, yes. Second or first question?
That's what.
First, I think, let me just narrow it down. So you want to know what's the minimum quality for a theatrical required today? Like earlier, 16 also, somebody had this, okay, it has grain, but that's the texture I want. Is your question, what's the minimum quality you need for a theatrical?
I mean, earlier, during making of film, only limited choice, either 16 mm or 35
That's gone now. Earlier is gone. Now,
that's what.
Today,
Now, today, what is the criteria in film making which intends to be theatrical release?
Shanker?
How they choose, I mean, as a...
It's more about
How much money do you have?
No, I would say
So, I mean, that's a start, right? So, sure, there is, look, there are as many digital cameras today as you can think of. There are plenty. I mean, Canon's got its lot, Sony's got its lot, Arri's of course there, and there are of course high end and low end. And then there are technical considerations like what is the bit rate, etc., etc. So to really simplify the thing, I would say, what's your content? Okay, what is your style of filming? As a director, do you like to do a lot of takes? Do you like to spend, are you going for a lot of coverage? Are you someone who wants to film something at the right light, at the right time in one shot, and you will come back again to do it if you didn't get it right? So it's a question of your personal choice and taste. So if, for example, when I shot Patang, the director was very clear that he wanted to shoot a lot of footage, which would not have been possible if we had gone with 16 millimeter. It would have constrained his style of making a film. So there are several considerations to why you would pick one camera over the other. Of course, budget is one, major one, but not the only one. Sometimes we go for a smaller camera. For instance, a friend of mine is shooting a series for Netflix, which is, it's a non-fiction series where they're shooting weddings. Now, weddings don't stop, right? Because you are not ready. So stuff happens. So she preferred a smaller camera so that she could just get into it and get those moments. Now, you can say it's a compromise on resolution, but it's not. You're actually getting sweet content, the immediacy of the moment. You're getting to engage with people. People don't get, what's the word for it? No, like they don't get intimidated by the camera or the camera person and all this technology and stuff like that. So it's a give and take. Ultimately, I would say I look at the image that is being made and what is being captured, and of course you're looking at, but that's what the preparation is all about. You prepare to create that image. It's not like you just walk in and you make it. There's years, like months and months of planning that goes behind it.
Yeah,
Your second one.
Other was like the cinematography rules which were existing earlier. Still, it's
Over the
relevant today.
shoulder.
Tapan, you want to take that?
Yeah,
As an example, over the shoulder.
I think
I
the
gave.
the fundamental is still the same. Fundamental, like like you're saying, it will be same. It's not going to change. But yeah, obviously the style of it will change. Based again on your what kind of story you're trying to say. Like how he said, it can be different format. And what he said is like 1635 is something is wrong because there are like film now are actually being made on 35 and 16, even now 65. Kodak has come back. So there are like films being made. If you see recently, the list came out, which is the contender for Oscar nomination. There are films which has been shot on film, like IMAX is there now. So you know what I'm saying. So you have formats right from iPhone to probably IMAX. So that's the range you have. So it's like actually more troublesome for a cinematographer because now you have different formats, different lenses, and again your platform. So it's going to be like a lot of permutation combination.
Yeah, I know people are now hiring DOPs for TikTok. So that's vertical. So how do you, I don't know. Do you naturally frame vertical? I don't. I
No.
frame horizontal.
Yeah, so that's something.
So that's a changing landscape.
Changing. You have to just adapt to it.
Yeah.
Like advertising is always happening. Advertising, you shoot for TV, you always, and then you also, you have to do something for Instagram or something for Facebook, something for some other thing. Like recently I said, QB is a classic example that you have a full platform coming only for mobile content, and out there, like we were talking about, like you have a series called After Dark, which only you can see after dark. It's like that, and that's being made by Spielberg. So you understand, every big guy is also coming into all this kind of platforms. So it's tricky, and I mean, it's so like I say, it's only time will say, what's going to happen,
Anyone? Yeah, you can. Yeah, please give him a mic, please. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Please introduce yourself, writer, director, producer.
Sure. My name is Sizzle. I'm a director. I'm trying to write my first feature. I'm also an ad film director. And my question is to the panel that, we're talking about changing landscape, but how has your process as a DOP changed for you? Has it changed at all in the last 10 or 15 years because of technology or just creatively speaking? Like, has it really changed?
I think he answered that. I kind of asked him if you want to add.
I'll just add to it. What I'll say is that the process is, of course, it's a lot more interactive now. like for broader, with a lot more departments. But I think in terms of just purely image making, it hasn't altered much. Because the source of the conversation to make an image is the story, is the script, is the written word. And the questions remain the same. What I do is, when I read a script and I'm discussing a scene, what I'm really inquiring about is the subtext. What are you not saying? What do you want? What is this character holding back? What is she saying in order to hide something? Because what do you light? What do you reveal? What do you unconceal? What do you sort of put in the background? What do you keep in the foreground is sort of a function of that, right? It's not mathematical, but it's emotional. It comes with that interaction. So in that sense, the process has not changed, not for me. But I would say the physical act of image creation has become a lot more speedier, simply because you have, you don't have to look at those 50 things that you need to look at when you are shooting on film. But I'd also say that, just adding to his question about, people look, this whole set culture of cinematographers not allowing people to come near the camera. I think largely how we conduct ourselves on set has altered. Like earlier we had greater set manners, but nowadays you got to tell people to behave, because it's just there. Everybody is looking at it, people the cameras are small, so they just walk across and people will stand around. So the sense of, like, everyone's got a phone, everyone's got technology, everyone's got access, so it's kya problem hai? It's like, when somebody's watching a movie and looking at their phone, do you feel bad? So it's like, that's part of our culture today. So I think it's largely affected the way we conduct ourselves on set, and that's also frustrating. But having said that, it's largely the physical image creation may have altered, but the process is largely the same. The conversations are the same.
Yes,
I just would like to add that as long as the team itself is focused on the cinema of it, then it's good, the making of something. It's a cinematic, and not so much about the process and the technology. It will all fall in place. You just focus on the cinema. You get to say what you have to say in the most beautiful way possible, and keeping the soul intact. For that, the whole crew and the ambience, everybody should be oriented towards that. There should be a certain harmony in that space. So starting out with your team with the correct orientation that you're making cinema makes a big difference, actually.
Yeah, you have a question? Yeah, please.
Yeah.
And then I'll come to you.
Hi, I'm a filmmaker. This question is for Tapan. I know, Tapan, you work in India as well as in US. I want to know, how is there any difference in framing and the colors and the working style in India and US?
The thing is that I don't think so in terms of set management is something which is obviously different. You have lesser people, and but in terms of framing or colors or not, no, it's like a different space. You go from one place to another. It's going to be as it is. It's going to be different, but it's not something like if you're asking me in terms of shooting style.
Shooting style, yeah.
No, it's it's with the director orient, right? How they see it, or so that's obviously to different people, right? So they will be different that way, but not like a specifically, not going to be very variety of something will be different. That's not like that.
No, but when they shot Coldplay in India, it looked totally different.
Yeah, but then that's again, you have a different team. They are seeing it in a different way, right? So I won't see that with I mean, I'm exactly not getting it. How you're exactly what do you mean to say?
You get a different perspective when you go there and film there.
Yeah, for sure, that way, yeah. But that's something which a director from there will feel it, right? I'm saying that's why they want to hire me, right? It's not, and obviously for me it's a different look. I'm looking at a different way, right? Maybe that's it. But then the process is same, like approach for the subject is going to be similar for me.
Yeah. You had a question, yeah.
Yes, hi. Hi, I'm a writer-director, and my question was actually primarily to Fowzia. I was recently interacting with a young group of film students, and I asked them, as I usually do in the beginning of a class, why they like cinema. And the first response I got was because it's shorter than series.
Shorter than?
It's shorter than series. It doesn't take so much time. It finishes in 2 hours. So I was wondering, as somebody who's engaging with young people in a classroom and probably looking at cinematography and various other aspects of film through that lens, do you think young people react differently to films being made now versus do they see a change or?
Certainly. I have been doing workshops right through from the year I graduated from 98 onwards. From 99 onwards, I've been interacting with people in classroom sessions and learning along with them, actually, honestly speaking. So over different institutions, different campuses. I mean, it's a process. So I should say that down the line, say around 13, 14, 15, 2013, 14, 15, you can see the change. There is a generation which is more digitally savvy, and computer is like part of the body, maybe in an extension of the hand phone, and the generation changes. And along with that is the access to information which is there on YouTube. Whatever you want in the class, you're seeing, and before you finish the sentence, the answer is coming, and 10 other film references. So the entire speed of information at your fingertips starts affecting the way the session is happening. So then my next thing is that what we studied as cinema and classical, artistic, and very reverential and all that is, it's very our journey. This journey is immediate, present, everything around. So then it came into a process of actually sitting and saying, so what do you think is good in this? And then we see that, and then we get into it. And what is good? And then you go into, as he said, the subtext and behind what is not being said, and actually getting into the soul of the film. And then it dawns that it's something else. It's not just about just this two-dimensional surface. There is multiple dimensions and I mean a larger impact on the brain when you take away what you take away from the film, end of it. Then when you actually touch that, then you see that change is happening. I mean, you have made a connect actually, how you are relating to the image on the screen. It was in 14, 15, I should say. Yeah.
Can I just add,
gentlemen? Yeah, he's been.
I just want to add quickly to this point about attention spans. It somehow feels like, as a cinematographer, one thing definitely that has changed is the questions you ask before you make a shot, because you don't know how it's going to be cut. Now, sometimes you shoot something with a certain rhythm, inherent style, or whatever you call it. It feels right in that moment, but then later on when you see the edit, it's all chopped up. So if I had known that this is your vision, I would have helped that vision. So now I pay more attention to that. And also, I would say the trend of cutting a certain way or pacing things a certain way is coming from this, attention spans. So your attention span is my responsibility, which is weird.
Actually, it's earlier, I mean, without judging anything, just to add to that same point, I did a series recently, shot to script, approved, and then they took it to something called brain metering or attention span, and where you're watching a series or part of and if your attention is good, you're clicking right, and if you're getting bored, you're keeping left. So, and then it went into a whole new edit. After those graphs came in, it went into a whole, and then I saw it, and it was so pacey, yes, but the nuances which one liked or the silences, they had all gone, because probably it was more data-driven rather than really, how it's enter your system and how it stays with you in the process, that driven. So technology is also driving what they do. and how it's cut, how it's written. So that's, and technologies are dependent on how audience reaction is coming. So rightly said, attention spans, but then still you have a Roma which is taking its time, and it's, so there is all kind.
Hi.
Gentlemen, yes,
Hi.
yeah.
I have two questions to both the cinematographers, and you also, ma'am. So,
2 questions divided over 3, okay.
yeah, just 2 questions,
Okay.
simple questions. So, first one is, I would like to know your take on higher frame rate cinematography. Is it going to work, not work? What is it? The second question is...
No, you didn't catch that. Didn't catch that.
Take on what?
High frame rate cinematography. I'm talking
High
about,
frame rate.
yeah.
Right.
I was like, some people say it's a failed attempt or something like that. So is it going to work? But there are arenas where it's working. There's demand. So the second thing is VR cinematography. Like I would like to know your insights, like how VR cinematography, as an experience, yes, as a amusement rides, it's working. But I would like to know, can we translate that into a narrative in terms of cinematography? First one is higher frame rate, second one is
So your
VR.
first one, I think, see, we're not here to comment what's going to work, what's not going to work. So if you want to add something to that, I mean...
No, I mean, I don't know anything about VR cinematography. I haven't done any.
No, his first question was about high frame rate.
High frame rate, neither is, I haven't done that either. So maybe...
No, I mean, I've not done, no, I've not done it either, but it's like, I think, you know, the one example is that I think Ang Lee did recently the high frame rate, right?
Ang Lee, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, you know, it's a different take here. A lot of people say it's too sharp, too clean, you know. So that I would not like, so first of all, I'm not aware of it, like, you know, to be honest. But as an art form, if you ask me, I mean, I don't see it to be like something which is appealing for, you know, general audience, for at least for me. You know, so it's something, and VR again is some, I don't know, but if VR is kind of still, I think in this nascent stage of like doing a narrative format, like, you know, where you can light up or do something. Because primarily as a DP, you know, I love to light up and do some, you know, create a mood, and also virtual reality is still, I mean, I've not seen anything till now of a narrative format on VR. But I believe you are into VR, right? Yeah, he's into VR filmmaking.
I've created some content. Its narrative is there, but it's a first-person point of view. Because since you're wearing the headset, it's first-person point of view. But like you can still light it. Yeah, I can talk to you later.
I'd like to actually see, it makes sense if you're using it for a specific effect, then high frame rate makes sense, and it can be aesthetically very appropriate if it's used in the right place. Where relevant, I have used it, and I've used it in fiction film, and it has been very evocative. I'm sorry I didn't show my showreel because I felt I have to represent my lot of other women DPs, and it's not about me because it's always been the experience of spotlight on one woman, and it becomes like she's the only one. So I kind of have not shared my work. But yeah, high speed is very effective as long as it's not overused. Second, I have done virtual, but basically in television, and we were experimenting 2010-11. And it's fantastic in live broadcast because you can go virtual, and as you're telecasting, your people are in chroma room, and while it's being broadcast, the feed is, you know, getting keyed in, and it's very interesting to light up for sets, virtual sets, and to match the lighting of, you know, the mood of the set with the people who are sitting and having a conversation. Depending on, I've done nine camera setup with 3 VR virtual cameras, and it's very interesting to work because you're calculating in your mind that, you know, how you're going to cut and what's going to come in the back. As the camera pans, the set also pans. That's the first thing that happens. Unlike in real, where you pan and you move out of the frame into another, the frame is changing. Whereas in VR, and the whole set shifts along with the pan. So there are a lot of small things that happen where one has to reorient oneself when doing cinematography for virtual. And I feel that the post of it and the pipeline is little vast, and if a production support works to ensure the whole pipeline, then it is a very interesting area, and it's much more collaborative work and it's longer, the whole duration is longer to do a virtual film actually. That is another worry.
Yeah, that's the biggest worry in VR.
Yeah.
That's a worry in non-VR also.
Yeah.
Hello, I've been a self-shooting director for 30 years for the BBC. I wondered, I don't know how much of that happens here. Of course, everybody's filming, as you said, on mobile phones, the ultimate democratization of the media. Do you ever feel threatened with your, your profession by this under 35 lot coming up who are all self-shooting? The music industry in the UK plummeted with that democratization. Do you ever fear that would happen in film in India?
Is your question?
Thankfully, there are so many. Sorry.
No, please.
Thankfully, there are so many opportunities and demand and requirement for content that I'm really glad that many people will be making more content for many more people, and everybody's taste will get addressed by a different kind of, this young generation filmmakers. And I really think that it just makes more space for more people to function in a nice way. I mean, yes, it is a phenomenon that affected music industry because the way it functioned changed probably, but something else will replace, and it is a positive thing. And instead of, it is writing with light, it becomes like pen and paper, and you just shoot your film and share and let it. And then the art will stand out, hopefully.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a good thing, right? And I think it's, at least I personally am invested in nurturing and encouraging young people to learn the craft and gain from our experiences, because that's what we benefited from our senior lot. I mean, today, wherever I am today in my career and whatever I have gained is on account of the charity of others, and I feel like it's important to pay it forward. So as much as I'm invested in furthering my knowledge of things or growing as a creator, I'm invested in nurturing the younger lot, because things have become a lot more, I would say, accessible today. You can just pick up a gadget and make a film, and it can be put on YouTube at the very least. So there are a lot more people that are coming up, and so therefore a lot more competition, a lot more breakdowns, a lot more anxiety. So I think it's important to look at that aspect, that with people who can approach their work with a certain degree of freedom. And I think that's important for us who have been in the industry for 20, 30 years, to help them out, because they're going to go through the same struggles as we did. So it's a good thing. It's inevitable, right? The younger lot is going to come forward, and I think as we grow older, it's in our best interest to nurture that.
Great.
So in that sense, there's no that sense here. But it's I feel it needs to be pushed more. People do it. It's invisible, but I feel it's the call of the hour.
So, sorry, one last question, and then we'll wind up. Yeah.
My name is Sagar. I'm a debut cinematographer.
Can't hear you, please. Just
my name is Sagar. I'm a cinematographer. I shot a independent feature film. So my question is for Raman. So from morning we have been watching a lot of independent films. So Film Bazaar basically tries to portray low-budget films, if I can say that.
Sorry, you got to speak up, please.
Yeah. From morning, we've been watching a lot of independent films. Filmmakers trying to showcase their films. Most of them are very low budget. My question is, a lot of people ask for production values, the quality of the film. So right in production stage, most of the budget I feel is through, it goes to cinematography, the camera, the lights, the equipment. So if you have a situation where, for example, you're supposed to shoot with RED, but you have a Canon, or if you have a situation where you're supposed to have lights, but you don't have, a situation where you need to use gimbal or something, or a crane, jib, you don't have. So how do you deal, trying to create a good production value for the film to maintain the quality, or would you just, how do you cope with such situations? Because a lot of filmmakers from morning, like I've been watching, like they're like trying to get some budget and funds and all that. So most of the production values trying to get a quality, goes into such kind of equipments or all these camera lights and all that. So if we have a situation where you don't have such equipments, how do you cope up with such situations?
Well, it's sorry. Go ahead.
Is your question regarding when you're pitching a film? When
No,
they're judging you by
while the shoot is happening, suddenly you have a situation where you can't access a lot of fancy equipments on lights or fancy cameras. You said you don't care about resolution for a camera, but what about lights? What about stabilizers? Or what about jibs and all that? Yeah.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not news that is provided to you the day you arrive on set. It's like I'm supposed to have a good life, but I may not be having one. So what am I going to do about it? So there's nothing like supposed to. There is a conversation, and you make a choice, and you roll with it, and you make an informed decision. That's the way to do it. It's a misconception that there is a sense of supposed to or entitlement that I want to shoot a film in this resolution or that resolution. I think it's important to understand that before, especially for newcomers, that you have a script, and if there is financing, there are automatically choices to be made. Sometimes a director might say, look, I can shoot this in 30 days, but with the Alexa, but we can actually shoot for 45 days on a Canon. And you might, be interested in that option because it gives you that much more time to light it and create an image or hone it. There is no hard and fast rule that you have to have a stabilizer. Now, if you need a stabilizer, then that's part of the conversation. But if somebody says, I'll give you a stabilizer and they don't, then that's a problem because then that's a different kind of a breakdown. So I just think that it's something you it's a relationship you develop into. That's what I have experienced for myself. So it's not like you'll come on set and there'll be a surprise, like there's no crane and there's no this.
With that, we'll have to end this session, and thank you very much. A wonderful session.
Wow. Thank you.
We ended up covering beyond the landscape, actually.
All right.
And
thank you.
Still, I hope you all were engaged and it didn't become technical. We kept away from the apertures and shutter speeds and ISOs and latitude.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for
it was
coming.
really sweet
Thank
of
you
you
guys, thank you.
to be here.
And just to answer your question, I'd like to add where you go. Yeah, while pitching, if someone says, oh, production value, never be apologetic. Okay, so this is the style I wanted. End of story. So